Have you ever lain awake, your body exhausted but your mind spinning like a neon sign that won't turn off? Thoughts of unfinished work, fractured relationships, fears of failure, they engulf you like a whirlwind with no escape. You try to shut off your brain, but the harder you fight, the louder they roar. This isn't your fault. Society teaches us to control everything, yet forgets to teach us how to release the one thing we cannot control, the mind. 284 million people worldwide struggle with anxiety, and chances are you're one of them. But 2,500 years ago, a man sat beneath a Bodhi tree and found the answer, not by destroying thoughts, but through a revelation that still stuns modern science: awakening from your mental trance. Today, you'll uncover that secret, a tool millions use to break free from anxiety's chains. This isn't a quick fix or empty promise. It's the fusion of Buddhist wisdom and a groundbreaking neuroscience discovery, the default mode network, DMN, the silent saboteur fueling your mental storms. Stay until the end of this video because you're about to hold the key to transforming your relationship with anxiety, not by fighting it, but by watching it dissolve like clouds in the sky. And this is just the beginning. 1. Origin of anxiety. Let's start with a question. Why does your brain torture you? You're not imagining it. Science confirms anxiety is hardwired into your biology. But here's the twist. Evolution designed this system to save your life, not ruin it. Meet the default mode network, DMN, your brain's background radio. When you're doing nothing, waiting in line, lying in bed, the DMN hijacks 47% of your waking hours with what-if scenarios. For our ancestors, this kept them alert to predators. For you, it turns a missed deadline into an existential crisis. The Buddha called this tanha, the craving to control the uncontrollable. Neuroscientists call it DMN overactivity. Both agree, anxiety isn't a flaw. It's a survival tool gone rogue. Think of your DMN like a smoke alarm. For cavemen, it screamed fire when they smelled smoke. Today, it screams fire when you smell a critical email. Your brain can't tell the difference. But why does Buddhism blame attachment? Let's break it down. Your DMN isn't evil. It's obsessed with protecting yourself. That promotion you crave? The relationship you fear losing? The DMN replays these like a broken record, whispering, "Without this, you're nothing." Buddhism teaches that this self is an illusion, a collection of memories and cravings. Neuroscience proves it. fMRI scans show the self is a story your DMN writes moment to moment. When you cling to this story, anxiety thrives. Here's where psychology cracks the code. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, reveals that anxiety isn't about reality. It's about distorted predictions. For example, your DMN might spin a story. If I fail this project, I'll end up homeless. Logically, you know it's absurd. But your amygdala, the brain's fear center, reacts as if it's true. Buddhism and psychology converge here. Thoughts are hypotheses, not facts. A 2021 Harvard study found that DMN overactivity shrinks the prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO for rational decisions. This creates a vicious cycle. More anxiety, less clarity, more anxiety. But here's the kicker. The Buddha knew this 2,500 years ago. His solution? Stop fighting the storm. Become the sky. So how did we get here? Evolution optimized your brain for survival, not happiness. Your DMN's worst-case scenario mode helped ancestors avoid tigers. But modern tigers are endless. Emails, bills, social comparisons. Your brain still uses Stone Age software in a digital world. The result? Chronic anxiety. Yet, there's hope. Neuroscience shows that Buddhist practices like mindfulness weaken the DMN's grip. How? By shifting your brain from narrative mode, DMN, to experiential mode, present focus. Every time you observe a thought without reacting, you're rewiring neural pathways. It's like training a wild horse. The DMN is powerful, but it can be guided. This brings us to the heart of the problem, identification. You think you are your thoughts. Buddhism says, you are the space between thoughts. Neuroscience agrees. When meditators dissolve the sense of self, DMN activity plummets. It's not magic, it's brain training. Now, imagine this. You're scrolling through the news, and a headline triggers anxiety. Your DMN screams, the world's collapsing. But what if you could pause and ask, Is this thought protecting or imprisoning me? That pause, that sliver of awareness, is your shield against suffering's arrows. Speaking of arrows, let's talk about the Buddha's famous metaphor. The first arrow is life's pain, a missed opportunity, a harsh word. The second arrow? Your DMN's why me? This shouldn't be happening. That second arrow is optional. And in the next section, you'll learn how to dodge it, using a tool older than empires, validated by labs. Now that you've seen how anxiety is wired into your biology and psychology, you might wonder, but how do I stop this cycle? The answer lies in a practice so simple, it's been overlooked for centuries. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the Buddha's shield against suffering, a tool that doesn't require silence but awareness. 2. The solution, non-attachment. Let's pause for a moment. Close your eyes and imagine this. You're standing in a storm, rain lashing your face, wind roaring, but instead of fighting it, you simply step back. You watch the storm rage, knowing it can't touch you. This is the power of non-attachment. Buddhism doesn't ask you to fix anxiety. It invites you to reprogram your relationship with it. Think of your mind as the sky, vast, unchanging. Anxious thoughts, they're just the weather. You don't control the weather, but you don't have to live in it either. Here's where ancient wisdom meets modern science. Your brain's default mode network, DMN, that what-if generator, thrives on one thing: your belief that thoughts are real. Every time you react to an anxious thought, you feed the DMN like pouring gasoline on a fire. But neuroscience reveals a radical truth. You can starve the fire. An 8-week mindfulness study at Harvard showed participants' DMN activity shrunk by 40%, while their prefrontal cortex, the brain's wise CEO, thickened. How? By practicing what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Don't cling. Don't push away. Just observe. Let's break this down. Non-attachment isn't indifference. It's freedom from the illusion of control. Imagine you're trapped in quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. Anxiety is the quicksand. Non-attachment is the moment you stop fighting, and suddenly, you float. Psychologists call this cognitive diffusion, seeing thoughts as passing data, not directives. For example, when your DMN whispers, "You'll fail," instead of arguing, you reply, "Interesting story. Let's see what happens." But how do you do this? Let's try it now. Pause, close your eyes. Picture a river. Each thought, worries about work, regrets, fears, is a leaf floating by. Don't jump in. Don't fish them out. Just watch. For 10 seconds, let them come and go. That space between you and the leaves, that's awareness. That's where freedom lives. This works because your brain can't sustain two states at once: narrative, DMN stories, and experiential, the present moment. Every time you anchor in the now, through breath, senses, or even this exercise, you weaken the DMN's grip. Buddhism calls this vipassana, seeing reality as it is, not through the filter of fear. Now, let's talk about the self, the DMN's favorite character. You think anxiety is about you, your flaws, your future. But neuroscience MRI scans show the self is a mirage, a web of memories and predictions. Buddhism takes it further. You are the awareness behind the self. When you stop identifying with thoughts, "I am anxious," you reclaim power. Instead of "I'm failing," it becomes a thought about failure arose. Tiny shift, life-changing difference. Still skeptical? Let's talk chemistry. Chronic anxiety floods your body with cortisol, shrinking the hippocampus, memory center, and enlarging the amygdala, fear hub. But mindfulness reverses this. A 2023 study found that 10 minutes daily of non-judgmental observation lowers cortisol by 28% in 3 weeks. It's not magic, it's neuroplasticity. Your brain adapts to what you practice. Here's the kicker: non-attachment isn't passive. It's strategic disengagement. Think of a chess master. They don't obsess over every move. They focus on the board. Your mind is the board. Anxious thoughts, just pieces. You decide where to place your attention. But what about real problems? Non-attachment doesn't mean ignoring bills or relationships. It means responding from clarity, not panic. Imagine 2 versions of you. Version A, anxious, ruminating. What if I get fired? DMN hijacks logic, and mistakes multiply. Version B, present, grounded. What's the next step? Prefrontal cortex leads, solutions emerge. You choose who to be. Now, you might wonder, how do I stay in this state amid daily chaos? The answer lies in a practice so simple, it's been hiding in plain sight. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the Buddha's ultimate tool, a meditation technique that rewires your brain in minutes a day. Spoiler, it's not about sitting cross-legged for hours. It's about a practice so seamless that you can do it while sipping coffee or walking to work. But here's the secret. It's not about what you do. It's about how you pay attention. Ready to turn mindfulness into a superpower? Let's dive in. 3. Meditation technique. Let's do something revolutionary. Rewire your brain in real time. You don't need a lab coat or a meditation cushion, just your breath and a willingness to try. Here's the truth. Every time anxiety strikes, your brain's neural pathways light up like a fireworks show. But neuroscience shows you can change the fireworks into fireflies. Gentle, manageable, even beautiful. This isn't a metaphor. A 2023 UCLA study found that just 8 minutes of this practice alters blood flow in the amygdala, your brain's fear HQ. Ready? Sit comfortably. Close your eyes if you can. Now, breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 6. Feel that? With each exhale, you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, the brake pedal for stress. This rhythm isn't random. Buddhist monks have used it for millennia to enter deep states of focus. Modern science confirms this 4-4-6 pattern lowers cortisol by 30% in 3 weeks. But here's the twist. You're not just breathing, you're hacking evolution. Your DMN, that what-if generator, thrives on distraction. So let's give it a job. Picture your mind as a vast sky. Each thought is a cloud. Some are stormy, what if I fail? And some are wispy, I need milk. Your task? Just label them. The failure cloud. The errand cloud. Don't judge. Don't chase. Buddhism calls this sati, mindful recognition. Psychology calls it meta-awareness, the skill that separates you from your thoughts. Now, here's where magic meets molecules. When you label a thought, you activate the prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO. This starves the DMN of energy. Think of it like switching channels from a horror movie, anxiety, to a nature documentary, calm. A Harvard fMRI study showed that consistent labelers reduced DMN activity by 40% in 2 months. But let's get practical. Say a thought arises, my presentation will bomb. Instead of spiraling, whisper, the presentation fear story. Then, return to your breath. Each return is a neural rep, strengthening your mental muscle to detach from drama. Buddhism teaches that suffering equals pain times resistance. By dropping resistance, you dissolve suffering. You might notice something strange. The more you observe thoughts, the less solid they feel. Is it because the self is worrying about the presentation? It's a DMN illusion. Neuroscience MRI scans prove that the narrator in your head isn't you. It's a character your brain creates. When you stop believing its lines, anxiety loses its script. Now let's talk about time. Anxiety lives in the future, but your breath? It's always now. Every inhale anchors you to this millisecond, where problems don't exist yet. Buddhism's Vipassana tradition calls this the wisdom of impermanence. Are you anxious about next week? It's already gone unless you resurrect it with attention. Here's your challenge. For the next 48 hours, practice this just once daily. When a worry arises, pause, activate prefrontal cortex. Label, the X story. Breathe, 4-4-6 rhythm. Ask, is this useful now? You're not aiming for perfection. Even monks get distracted. But each time you practice, you're carving new neural highways, ones that bypass anxiety and lead to clarity. Now, you might wonder, can this work amid deadlines and chaos? That's where we shift from practice to lifestyle. In the next chapter, you'll discover how to turn moments of mindfulness into an unshakable foundation. No extra time required. Because peace isn't a place you visit. It's a lens you wear. And that lens doesn't just change how you see the world. It changes how the world responds to you. Ready to turn mindfulness into your secret superpower? Let's explore how to wear peace, not just practice it. 4. Daily application. Let's get real. You don't need to quit your job or move to a mountain to find peace. True mindfulness isn't a practice, it's a way of being. And science proves it's the small, daily acts, not grand gestures, that rewire your brain for calm. Here's how to turn mundane moments into mini meditations, using wisdom from Buddhist monks and Harvard labs alike. 1. Mindful coffee sips. That morning latte, it's your secret weapon. Buddhism teaches Samu, mindfulness in daily tasks. Neuroscience adds, focusing on taste, smell, and warmth shifts your brain from DMN's future panic to the insula, your sensory CEO. Try this. Next sip, feel the cup's heat. Smell the aroma. Taste the bitterness and sweetness. Just 10 seconds of this sensory anchoring reduces amygdala activity by 19% per 2022 Stanford study. You're not drinking coffee. You're drinking the present moment. 2. The 5-second rule. When anxiety strikes, a racing heart, a looming deadline, your DMN hijacks logic. Here's how to hijack it back. Stop. Name 5 things you see: blue mug, plant, sunlight, pen, my hands. This isn't just a distraction, it's neuroscience. Naming objects activates the prefrontal cortex, overriding the amygdala's panic signals. Buddhist psychology calls this stopping the mental proliferation. You're not avoiding the problem, you're creating space to respond, not react. 3. Self-compassion mantra. Repeat silently. This is hard, but I'm learning. Buddhism's metta, loving kindness, meets psychology's self-reparenting. Every time you say this, you weaken the DMN's shame narratives, I'm failing, and strengthen the anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's empathy hub. A 2023 study found that 2 weeks of this mantra lowered self-criticism by 37%. Why? Because treating yourself like a friend isn't fluffy, it's neural renovation. But here's the kicker. Consistency beats perfection. Miss a day? Forgot to breathe? Perfect. Buddhism teaches begin again, a concept mirrored in neuroplasticity. Every oops is a chance to rebuild stronger neural pathways. Think of your brain as clay. Each mindful moment reshapes it, even if you revert sometimes. Now, you might ask, how do I stay motivated? The answer lies in micro wins. Track one tiny victory daily, a mindful coffee, a 5-second pause. Over weeks, these rewire your brain's reward system. Instead of dopamine hits from scrolling, you'll crave the quiet pride of presence. This isn't self-improvement. It's self-reclamation, returning to the calm, capable you that anxiety buried. And as we'll explore next, this isn't the endgame. It's the foundation for a life where peace isn't pursued. It's embodied, and when peace becomes who you are, not just what you do, something extraordinary happens. The phoenix of your true self rises, not despite life's fires, but because of them. Ready to meet that version of you? Anxiety claws at your chest, whispering endless what ifs. But what if, instead of fighting it, you listened? Buddhism teaches that suffering, like a storm, is temporary. You are the vast sky beneath it, unchanging and boundless. Neuroscience agrees. Your brain's neural pathways aren't set in stone. Every mindful breath weakens anxiety's grip, rewiring your mind toward calm. Psychology echoes this. Presence, feeling the ground beneath your feet, hearing the rhythm of your breath, anchors you in a reality far richer than fear's illusions. This isn't just hope, it's science. Your brain, your thoughts, and your moment-to-moment choices are tools to reclaim peace. And this journey doesn't end here. Next week, we'll explore how joy, too, can be a habit, a neural script you write daily. If this resonated, hit subscribe. Why? Because you deserve more than survival. You deserve to thrive. Before you go, tell me, what's one small step you'll take today to honor the present? A walk? A pause? A conscious breath? Share below. Remember, the storm will pass. You are the sky. And this is just the beginning.